weeks now on this little podcast. I mean, I've talked to other people, obviously. I've even been out in public, if you can believe it.
Oh, you.
I know. I know. But, it is what it is. We're just navigating this new world.
Yeah, I still love your background, your natural brick background.
Yeah. Well, if you saw the crazy mess, as my son calls the janky setup here in the basement, it's all smoke and mirrors. So the background is quite simple. The rest of the room, not so much.
There's a paint commercial where she only painted around the back of the Zoom, so where you could see the camera in the background.
Yeah.
Interesting commercial. Everybody's Zooming, or we're buying, or Googling, or it's tiring. I miss people. Like, the one-on-ones. I miss that. I really do.
I think so many of us are too. Like, there's so many of us that are just wanting to, it's a hybrid thing where it's like, there's sometimes I want to see people. I want to see people I like, but I don't want to see people that I'm like, because yeah, of course. Yeah. But I find that, and people are surprised to hear this, even as an extrovert, I really don't like networking, and I really don't like it. I don't like this sort of whenever I don't know people in a room. It's awkward. It's weird. It's hard. You would think that extroverts are all like, I love getting out there and meeting new people. And I'm like, it's always that awkwardness at first, but
it sucks a lot of energy out of a lot of people to do that kind of stuff. I love that stuff. Or I used to love that stuff. Now I go out and it's like, everything's a hassle now. It's like,
everything's a hassle. Yeah.
Work now. Oh my God. I have to leave the, cocoon of my basement and go out into the world. But I miss people at the same time. It's a very strange world right now.
It is. So I think we're going to find a little bit more balance insofar as not having to go out as much, which is probably just as well, especially for people like myself who hate to be out in the wintertime. But at the same time, I do notice, if I'm stuck at home for too long, I'm like, I just need to get out and see people and that kind of stuff. So
I love that introverts, because when COVID, sort of started to go down and they had to go back out, I felt sorry for them. And then COVID started going back up, and I felt so thrilled for them, because they don't need an excuse not to go out anymore. They had COVID. Oh, I can't go out. Sorry, it's COVID. So it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. COVID's over for you.
Yeah. Oh, there's Sandy. Oh, your lovely wife. Oh, is my sound really not working? It might be my new computer. So even Sandy's having a hard time hearing me. So it's me. I thought it was, a technical thing. So I don't know what to do here. I don't know how to make it, I need a tech person. So, and it's Richard's sound too. We're both very quiet. Wow. Okay. So they're saying your sound is very low. I can shout. There's no doubt about it, but, so thank you, Sandy, for jumping in. I'm so glad your lovely wife is on here too.
She could be let me see.
Your tech person? Well, while you're sort of looking around, let me just introduce you, because we're already sort of in a few minutes here. So I just want to introduce you to the people, anybody else who is on and doesn't know Richard yet. And Richard is one of my favorite people. I'm the captain of the Richard Gauder cheerleading team. I'm sure his wife is actually the captain, but maybe I can be sub-captain. I don't know what the next level down is. Anyway, so Richard is the president of CMS Web Solutions. And for almost 20 years, is it almost 20 years or more than 20 years? It's been,
It's going to be 20 years in November.
Okay. Which is somebody called me a dinosaur not too long ago. And so, especially in web technology, 20 years is,
they called you a dinosaur?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. How do you like being called a digital dinosaur? And I'm like, I don't mind it too much. I sort of like being an early pioneer when it came to the web stuff, but I wasn't doing anything like you and Sandy are doing. And so you guys have been focusing on building effective, visitor-centered, well-built websites, which I know you guys, that's a big part of who you are, what you do, how you help, is doing it right the first time. And so around the world, many countries have had legislation that requires websites to be inclusive and meet accessibility standards and guidelines. And so you and your team and your lovely wife and Allah, so it's not really just about legislation for you guys. It's really built within your DNA that just makes sense to be inclusive and not to exclude anybody. And actually, we're going to talk about the profitability and why it's important for organizations to be inclusive, because they're actually leaving money on the table, which I thought was really interesting and fascinating the last time you and I talked. So you guys have been really focusing on web accessibility for the past 8 years or so. And so, yeah, so let me just start by asking, like, why did you and Sandy and Ella get involved in like website design 20 years ago? Like what precipitated that?
Okay, so we didn't start as a web company. We actually started as a marketing company. After 9/11, Sandy was working in the aerospace industry, and we both decided to quit our jobs after 9/11 happened and start business because we thought the world was going a little crazy, and said, you know what, let's do our own thing, which looking back is kind of nuts. But after that, for around 5 years, I was also into marketing consulting. And what happened was there was a company that I was consulting. There was a tech company that had a CMS system, which is a content management system that allowed companies to do their own updates for their content. And we thought, this is going to be huge. So I went around and tried to sell it to web developers or web designers at the time. And they said, get the heck out. And I went, what? Why? And they said, because half of our revenue is coming from updating people's websites. I said, yeah, but at the enterprise level, they're already doing it. This is going to be huge.
Mm-hmm.
So Sandy had been co-op at IBM for 3 years when she was going through university. And so they trained her to be a web developer, the software company that built it. That's how we sort of got into web design. And then, so we were doing marketing and web design. And at the time, it was like, do I need a website? You know, is a business card more important than a website? So talk about ancient, my gosh. And so, yeah, we got into it. And then when we looked at the numbers, we saw that it was much more profitable and it was more fun to do web. So we slowly moved from complete marketing, a whole bunch of different areas, to just web. And then, so we were doing that. Ella came in maybe 14 years ago. She's been with us. And so we brought her in to do a lot of the project coordination. And we've been one, sort of happy family. We went up and went down, but the 3 core people are still there. And it goes all over now. So, yeah. And then accessibility, that's a whole other conversation. But that's sort of, that answers your question, how we got into it 20 years ago.
Yeah. And I mean, don't you wish, like, in a way, I wish I had a do-over, because back then, 20 years ago, because I know, right? And it was like this, like, it's kind of where we are with sort of like blockchain and where we're going with NFT, all that kind of stuff. And so it was kind of an exciting time. I remember, like, there was no McDonald's.com, and I used to work at Wedding Bells, and I remember looking, there was no MarthaStewart.com, and I was like, ooh, wouldn't it be, but then I didn't know whether to squat on the URL back then and like buy the URL. And had I known then what I know now, but at the time we didn't even know what was going on. So it was sort of a risky, in a way, it was sort of a risky move to kind of get into the web stuff. And then you and I met like right at the precipice of when social started, and having those conversations of like, is this going to be a fad? Is this going to be something that's going to take off? So it's been kind of an interesting journey.
Our conversation. See, the iPhone came out in 2007, and then I remember afterwards, when it started, then we started meeting, and we had a conversation about, is this going to affect kids? Because they're looking down at their screens a lot, and with NLP, I guess the sensitivity, you look down in order to get your feelings, and is that going to impact? It's like, I don't know, and yeah, it's been fascinating. So. Yeah, this whole journey through the web. There was no Facebook at the time. There was no mobile phones when we got into the web. It was desktop publishing back then. So it's changed. Boy, has it changed. But yeah, I mean, Sandy goes, hey, this Bitcoin thing, should we get some? I know nothing about it. And it was $1 at the time. So yeah, it was like, I don't know about it. So lots of mistakes that made along the way, but hey, oh well.
It's been an interesting journey. I mean, and for you and I, the time has gone by like that. Whereas, you look at somebody who's my students at the college, would be like, the time, that's my whole life. So it's a little terrifying in some ways that time has really gone by in such a, like, in a heartbeat, but yet it has been a few years since the inception of it. Really, 20 years is, for you and I, has gone by like in a heartbeat, but it's a lot. It's kind of a long time from a web standpoint.
Well, I mean, it keeps changing, right? How you build it changes and change, and just marketing, you know, and you know, just having a website before used to be a big deal, and then, you know, the whole website presence, and then social came in, and, you know, Google showed up. Well, they showed up in 2001, but I mean, you know, the whole SEO thing, and, you know, integrating that, and now we're coming back to stuff that I had learned. You know, you're reading Seth Godin's latest book, and it's all the old stuff that used to be like the good stuff, the solid stuff, is now coming back. So because we've stayed core always, it's been quite, we've stayed solid because of that. We stay close to the sort of the solidness of the world, you know, helping them make money, save money, do all that kind of stuff, and just helping them.
So how do you keep the passion up though? Like, so, I mean, it's really great that you and your wife work together on a lot of this stuff together, which to some people would be not so great to work with their spouse. But for you guys, I mean, and having worked together for a really long time, I mean, so many organizations, especially when it comes to web, they burn out. They can't deal with sort of, I mean, we've seen them come and go, and there's a lot of people that will hang a shingle out and then they disappear, but you guys have stood the test of time. So is there a secret sauce that, you know, keeps you guys humming away? And
well, we got into web because it wasn't boring, and it was always changing. So that in and of itself keeps us fresh. Burning out, I mean, you really got to love what you do. Oh, there was Sandy. Sandy.
Some people have cats that go across the screen. You have with Sandy.
So you know what? It's not working.
He's working on the tech support in the background to.
I don't know if my earphones will work, but Sandy's saying I can't hear you, and if she can't hear me, then I mean
it's pretty quiet. Yeah.
This and see. Yeah.
And I just talk loudly, so I think you could probably hear me from my house the way I'm told how often I scream.
This could be magic.
I found the earbuds and I couldn't, for me, they didn't work for me, but we'll see.
Okay, hold on. Here. Da, 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 da,
This sounds the same to me. As we were saying before we went live, it's just hilarious that sometimes technical people can't. We have our own hiccups. I'm not technical by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, as I said, that's why my 14-year-old can certainly,
Is this working, or it's totally
kind of the same.
Not even the earbuds are working. Nothing's working. So the earbuds are connected. And it's exactly the same. Well then, hold on. This is good because this is sort of the story of my life.
It's the story of everybody's life. Like, are you there? Are you on mute? You're on mute.
Yeah, the things that don't go well, which continue the challenges in our world, they're always they're.
Oh, now you've got. Oh, wait, something's happening.
Okay, how's that?
Hey, I can hear you. Yay!
Okay, let's start again.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandy.
And I was just going to tell you how my whole life has been about challenges and overcoming challenges to make things even better. Oh my God, what has kept us engaged? This is a perfect example. Because you're just going along. You know how the COVID thing came? And it just shattered everybody's puzzle and their whole world. That's sort of been us, right? Because you're going along and all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's an iPhone. Oh, websites have to work with an iPhone. Oh, we better learn how to do that. And it goes on and on and on. So you're constantly learning. So it's a burned out. I don't know, burned out. I mean, I garden, which sort of gets me out of this computer energy thing all the time. But otherwise, it's yeah, and we love what we do. I mean, we love helping people and businesses. Business people are a different breed. They're like, oh my gosh, let's just quit our jobs. And I call it the matrix. Everybody's working sort of in the matrix, and then they start their own business and they're like, oh my God, now I'm responsible for everything. I can't blame anybody. It's me. So you have to create your own business model, your own, if you're not generating revenue, you're not making payroll. It's how can you get bored of that? I mean, you're scared half the bits. You're failing at things and learning as you go along. And so you got to be okay. So a little bit crazy, just a little bit, how do you keep fresh? I don't know if that you're allowed to say that. You have to love what you do and love the people that you're with. And earlier on, we decided, hey, you know what, if we're going to work with clients, let's make sure we like them, because if you're going to build a business, and in the service business, we knew that it's all referral, really. That's, hey, who do you use? Business people ask other business people. They don't necessarily go on the internet. They'll go on the internet afterwards to check you out, but they'll ask somebody first. I mean, that's the reality of it. So we wanted to deal with nice people because nice people know other nice people. And so after 20 years, we have a whole bunch of nice people that are our clients. So you want to help them. I mean, and COVID's been really, really interesting, because one of the other things that make the survive or thrive, or whatever you call it, survive and thrive. It's the fact that we went wide and not deep into the marketplace. So we were consciously saying, okay, we want to be in different industries. We want to go in the mid-market, not the home-based business, but so the mid-market, the established businesses, they need help. And then that's what we did. And so we introduced at one time hosting, email, domain names. So that created a residual income that over the years built up. And so it created a little bit more stability. You're not going into I call it the freelance free fall, which is I bid on something, I do the job, and then I have no jobs, and I go back out and I have to lower bid, and they just spiral down into oblivion, So it's a real business. We look at this as a real business. Measure, look at the numbers, what's working, what's not working, adjust. We always know that something's that was working doesn't work anymore, so we replace it. So yeah, it's never boring. So burnout, I can see people burning out. If they're only doing it as a job, that we generally love, as we love to help people. And it's like, oh, did you see this? Have you tried this? Because the other joy of having a wide audience is you can aggregate the information of what's working and what's not in a moving, kind of evolving sector, and transfer that knowledge to other clients. It's like, oh, you know what? This worked for them. This didn't work for them. Don't do this yet. It's not working over here. It's not working over there. And so it's based on fact. It's not based on salespeople sort of trying to sell you something, saying, oh, this is, you and I know we've had this discussion. Give me sales, don't give me likes, with the whole social thing. I don't care if you like me or not. Are you buying my product? So, or are you not? Okay, sorry.
Yeah. 100%. And one of the things that I always give you credit for when we first started hanging out and stuff like that was just really getting on the same side of the table as the target audience to understand how they see it through their lens. Because I think most business owners, regardless of what organization you're in, we're so close to it. And as I say all the time, is when you're inside the jar, you can't see the label, right? And one of the things that you taught me early on was, what is the language that your target audience is using, not the language that we use. And the perfect example you said was creating one for a car dealership, creating a website for a car dealership, and they're wanting to use the industry term, the pre-owned vehicles. And then you said, but do people look for pre-owned vehicles? No, they don't. They look for used cars. So it's that reframe and like figuring out, how does your audience use it? I think is so crucial. And this is where, you've said to me from the beginning, you just do it right the first time. When you do it right the first time,
you try and do it right the first time, but things then might not work anymore like they were before. When Google first came out with the Google Ads, my God, they were great.
Mhm.
Then weren't working anymore. And then this thing called Facebook came, and targeting ads for Facebook, that was great. But then there's all this, then didn't work anymore. And so, it's so marketing and web are two different things. And so we've basically evolved into just the web company. We much prefer doing just the web because they're really good. And when we switched from the proprietary CMS system
Mhm.
that we got into it over to WordPress, which is open source, then it just went from there. That's like I said, that's when we started doing the Canadian hosting and all that kind of stuff, and it just worked. But yeah, the other success thing, which relates to that, I'm just going to cough, if that's okay with you. I'm going to. The other thing is not being perfect, which I am really good at, not being perfect. Not striving for perfect. This is good enough. It's like, okay, because it's moving too quickly. The
Yeah.
other thing that what's wonderful is seeing the transition in when you focus on the client and the audience and the target audience. It gets you out of your mind, and we've always had that from the beginning. I always say to clients, it doesn't matter. You really aren't that important, and I am not really that important. It's always the one face on the other side of the screen. What are they looking for? How do they want to see it? How can we make it effortless for them to get what it is that they want? And most people get that. They go, of course, because I'm shopping. I want it to be easy. But people don't do it. Like the actual agencies, the marketing agencies, the devs, I want it to be pretty. I no. Function before form, make it professional, and make it effortless. And that's where the whole accessibility thing also, we moved right into that very easily, because it was focused on the user. It's UX, right? It's UX and accessibility and UX. It's the same thing. And when you focus on the target audience, or the person that you're trying to have as a visitor, and give them what they're looking for, it takes you out of your own head. It's not about, oh, I like blue, well, I like purple. It's like, I don't care. You could hate purple as long as the visitor loves purple. But it's so hard to do for people. As you said, it's hard in the inside of the bubble, or your words, when you're inside looking out. Sometimes it's challenging.
So you've given me a lot of perspective and insight on accessibility, because when I think of accessibility, I think of mostly in the framework of somebody who is challenged, whether visually challenged, auditorily challenged, those kinds of things. But you've really enlightened me that accessibility isn't just simply that specific category, but there's more to it than that. There's much more to it than what one would think of accessibility to be.
So I'm trying to remember what that was, but I know that in general, people tend to think that accessibility is only about people with disabilities, and it sort of is, because you're focused on the laws of the land. For organizations in Ontario with more than 50 employees, where they have to have an accessible website, they have to focus on it. But for other people, it's that same focusing on the user and making it effortless. Don't make me think. Just give me what it is that I'm looking for. And with accessibility, it almost gives you a list, and it forces you to make sure that you check the boxes and adhere to sort of common guidelines. And web standard guidelines, which we always did before we even got into accessibility. Moving into accessibility was just a little movement farther. Gave us an opportunity to see how it impacted, by doing accessibility, impacts other things. So there's something called a bubble up theory. And a bubble up theory is that if you do it for people with disabilities, it bubbles up to everybody else. So my example is, there's a few examples, but one is closed captioning. That's for people with disabilities, but who hasn't been in a gym and there's no closed captioning? You're saying, put the closed captioning on. You're not disabled, but you use that. And or if you're watching Netflix and some Scottish program comes on, or Irish, sorry, and you don't understand a thing they're saying, flip it on. That's good. The same thing with the physical world. There's curb cuts. That at the corners. There's they used to just, the curbs used to go around. Then they lowered the curbs. so that, because they were doing that for wheelchairs. Yeah, but how about babies and strollers? And so it affects everybody. Plus, with this whole diversity thing, the more people you have on your team that look at it from different angles, the wider your perspective. So, is that what you're okay?
And I think it was sort of a reframe to me, thinking now, now that I'm over the 50 year mark, that, people I know that are starting to do like this a little bit more, the font's quite a bit bigger. Oh, yeah. And like usually people wouldn't sort of categorize people who are starting to like having to need bigger fonts or the glasses or whatever, to consider those people that need assistance in making things accessible, right? So we don't necessarily would think of ourselves as needing accessibility, and yet, Can
I give you an example of how because people forget that people with low vision, and as we age, people, if you are say 25, and you're out in the sunshine, and you're looking at something on a mobile phone, if the contrast is not good, you have difficulty seeing, right? Or we all have these assistive devices. Take your glasses off and try, or not that you would, but a lot of us use these things. Mm-hmm. But it's the same thing. So if you there was a study, every year they do a study, an organization called WebAIM looks at the 1 million top pages that are viewed on the internet and how many have accessibility problems. And it improved this year, out of the 1 million, it went from 85 down to 84% had at least 5 problems. So it's like rampant, right? But the number one problem was color and contrast. And so, people forget that also 1 in 12 men, I think it's like 1 in 12, are colorblind, right? So, you're having all these COVID maps and all these maps, and if they're all red, and if they only use color to distinguish areas, people that are colorblind can't see that. So you're cutting out 1 in 12 people. They don't know what you're talking about. There are those things that, and people don't talk that they're colorblind. They don't. Tyler, that you used to know, and there's a whole bunch. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, there's so much that needs to be considered, but people don't think about it. So accessibility at least focuses you.
Yeah. So you saw this as an opportunity, obviously, about 8 years ago. You guys obviously still can, create great websites or beautiful, simplified, very clear websites. And so let me just take one step backward too, because it wasn't until I met you, Richard, and I've been, in digital marketing for quite a long time, but I didn't realize that, there's a difference between sort of like the front end, making things beautiful with graphic design. And then there's what you and Sandy do, which is the actual hardcore development stuff. And I was like, oh, but I thought that, foolishly, oh, don't you do it all? And so you partner with other people to actually create the graphics, and you guys do that. So I just was, to me, kind of people just assume, and you know what assuming does, but people just assume that it's all just under the same umbrella, which is what people will say to me, oh, well, if you do social media, then you must know everything about TikTok. And I'm like, not this girl, I don't. So I just wanted to make that clear, because it wasn't clear to me before.
Yeah, I never tell people what I do, because as soon as I walk in and if I say, oh yeah, we're in web design, they want me to fix their computer.
Yes.
It's I'm not a hardware guy, it's so yeah. What do you do for a living? Oh, well, I don't know. Something really weird. I'm a lion tamer or something. I don't know. It's horrible, because and I talk to other people that are in the industry too. If they know you're in the technical thing, they want you to fix their computer or this thing, that the issue that they're having, their printer's not working. Oh my God, I know how to turn the light on in a car. Oh my God, I'm having trouble with my engine. Oh, yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So I think, and it's I was just as naive to think that as well, because I'm the marketing side of things. So I never had to really develop any of that stuff. Anyway, so really the focusing on the accessibility and so
okay, sure.
Yeah, so I just pivoted away, but what people need to know about accessibility and the profitability is really what you've just sort of been saying, is that people are leaving money on the table by not recognizing that if it's not done from the user's perspective, that if websites are not created from the user perspective, then people are just going to get frustrated. And I mean, I have my frustrations with the web industry in a way, because I see these pop-ups and like, this is getting worse and worse with the advertisements that are coming up and popping up all over the place. And if I can't get access to the information I need right away, I'm just going to click out and go. I'm not going to have the patience. Not like, what's the human attention span is something like 9 seconds now, which is less than a goldfish. I mean, so if things are not accessible and mobile friendly and and desktop friendly, then you're just going to lose that audience. And I think, to your point, most marketers like myself, well, we just want to make it look pretty, and this is what we want to share, not what does our audience need to know, or what does the audience want to get. It's a different mindset altogether.
Well, there are different types of professionals out there. You know, there are the people that take what they do seriously and do it properly, and there are others that don't, you know. And the challenge with accessibility is that once you get into it, you're constantly frustrated. Because think about it, how frustrated you are with the crappy stuff that's being built out there. You know, at first it was like, oh, you're a web designer. Oh, my Johnny next door just graduated from public school and he's going to build my website. It's like, okay, sure, have at it. You know, but with accessibility, it's also you're looking at people that are out there. You know, with Google and marketing people, and they'll love this, they're always trying to get for a little bit more market share, Well, people that have disabilities are a huge market. And so not only are you frustrated and you leave, but think about somebody that's using what's called a screen reader, where a website talks to you. You can't see, you can't use a mouse, or you have carpal tunnel and you can't use a mouse. So use a keyboard. We've started with accessibility. We've started to do these things called live audits, which Sandy is exceptional at, because she can talk with senior management, presidents, HR, tech people, and we'll ask them, oh, give us the 2 most important user journeys to get to whatever it is that you want them to get to. And so it's like, oh, let's buy my product, you know, or sign up for this program that we have, this educational program, you know. So she will say, okay, cool. Well, first thing I want to do is let me go through it with a keyboard. Let me show you that. And a lot of times you expose the bumps and people can't even access the button using just the keyboard. And nobody's taught anybody accessibility in school. I mean, that's why Sandy's teaching at Mohawk as well. We're trying to move, you know, and what we discovered actually is that tech people don't understand accessibility. They don't know how to do it. It's like, oh my gosh. So we're starting to do micro coaching sessions with developers to give them the tools to move them forward. But also whenever a marketing person or a president of a company sees that they're a portion of their market can't access even purchasing a product, they get really upset, you know. And so not only that, but like I said, companies with over 50 or more employees in Ontario have to have an accessible website. And as of January, they've upped the rules so that it includes color and contrast. Oh my gosh. So a perfect example is a large company that I knew of. I shouldn't say their name, but anyway, it is like huge. Everybody knows this company. They're on TV and everything. They had to change their color because the original designers, graphic designers, didn't look at color and contrast to see if it met the ratios. You know, they call it accessibility, but it meets certain ratios. And so they had to change all of their branding and their colors, which were really, really vibrant. They changed slightly over time in order, but think of the cost, because somebody at the top of the food chain, the graphic designer, just didn't think to check it because of whatever reason. So all business cards, all ads, all TV, everything had to change. So yeah. A little learning goes a long way.
Well, yeah, and I think when most of us don't know what it's like until we've been in that situation, right? So most of it's the education of like, oh, I didn't realize. And yeah, to your point, there's a lot of people that I've come to know recently that are colorblind, and I mean, I can't imagine going through, and we think of it as like, oh, you wore the brown shoes with the black, whatever. It's much more than that, to your point. Like those sort of contrasting things that one would see and say, like maybe you have to put into a code, or like those, what are they called when you have like people have to like put in a code, or like it's sort of like those dot. I'm thinking like of the visuals with the dots, and there's like, it's really hard to see the patterns underneath.
Oh, right. Yeah, when you're trying to identify somebody with color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a captcha.
Somebody with colorblind.
And it's like, well, yeah, those people can't see it at all. So, how much
CAPTCHA. Are you talking CAPTCHA?
Yeah, things like that. Like, because I was talking with my kid about this. One of his friends is colorblind, and a young kid, and so they kind of mess with him a little bit to say like, oh, they can see it, but he can't see it. And like they're having fun with it. They're not sort of bullying or anything like that. But it is interesting because I think it's an educational awareness piece for him too, that not everybody can see everything that's online. And so how do we make that better for people to use, to make it usable?
So one of the things we did, Sandy, in partnership with Mohawk College and CIRA is the .ca people, domain.d, they look after the .d. They had, anyway, she created with them in partnership a course for high school kids to teach them about accessibility.
I love it.
So yeah, so I mean, we keep working on side projects on the, because we're trying to move accessibility forward, because there's a lot of work to be done. But at the same time, you have to teach them young. When we were trying to sell accessibility even to hospital systems, I still remember the guy ramming on the table saying, no, but no government's going to make us be accessible, la, 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 la. It's like, well, okay, it's coming, well, whatever you believe, good for you, but these are the facts. This is what's coming down the pipe. So you want to get ahead of this.
Well, I would too, Richard, that people don't necessarily think of that as inclusion, which is weird, right? Like we think of diversity, the diversity and inclusion, but that's a huge part of inclusion. It's not just simply, there's a whole spectrum to diversity and inclusion. And I think maybe accessibility hasn't really been thought of as within that diversity and inclusion sort of discussion.
Well, I've noticed that the whole Black Lives Matter has moved inclusion a little bit, like the conversations, because if you were to say our website works for everybody other than people, it works great for white people, and for 25 to 40-year-olds, doesn't really work well for people that aren't white, and is that okay? People would be like, are you kidding me? So why is it okay to say this works really well for younger people, but it doesn't work well for people with disabilities, or seniors that have trouble, is that okay? They'll say, no, it's not okay. But they don't think about that. It's exactly what you're saying. People just don't think that why should it be okay to segregate people? They're just make it accessible and usable for everybody.
Right.
And it doesn't take it. And the thing is, it doesn't cost anything. It's just a mindset. It's just how you built it. I mean, one of the saddest things is we got into this accessibility thing thinking, oh my God, it's going to be huge. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. And they still don't.
It's a little horrifying. People were like, well, we're not going to fix it. And it's not broke. And it is broke.
No. Well, the marketing people, it's like, yeah, we want it to be accessible. Okay, cool. This is what you have to eat. These are the parameters. These are the boxes. Well, no, we don't want that because it's not blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, make up your mind, So we get them to sign something that says, you realize that, this is not going to be accessible. And, you recognize that you're not breaking the laws of Ontario. Not that we want laws. The thing is, the other thing about our industry is it's broken. Can I tell you about our industry is broken? The whole industry went down these check marks. I want my website to be accessible. Okay, so companies say, okay, we'll audit our website. What's not accessible? And so people were like, okay, well, so the whole consultants, they didn't need to know how to build a website. They just knew what was compliant, what wasn't. Well, then all of a sudden you had all these people running around. It was almost like a soccer pitch where all you had is referees with big loud whistles going, you're not conforming. You're not conforming. There's no coaches and players. There was nobody that knew how to actually fix the problems, So it's like, oh my gosh, we've created this. So here are the issues. Go fix them, and nobody knows how to fix them. So now we're in the stage where we're trying to help people fix them. So yeah, it's been real. I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I tell you,
Well, it's an uphill battle. I mean, the one thing that you have always been, Richard, is like you champion the people that have maybe haven't had voices. I think that's sort of like one of your unique values that you have, from the work that you do with climate change through to, like, you find voices for people that maybe are the voiceless in a way. So, that's kind
Don't
of.
start me on climate change. That's a 25-year-old hobby that it's like, well, now you think it's important. What about when what you were calling me 25 years ago? Like, oh my gosh, yeah. I don't know. I wish I wouldn't be a little ahead of the game, because most of the stuff is you're always battling. Whether it's you're always battling. So I don't know. Maybe I have a hard head. I don't know what. Why don't you burn out? Because I don't know. I don't know.
I think you're right, though. Like, the person I've known for a long time is you've always been so far ahead of everybody else that when people find, like, and then you're just like, leading the charge and trying to get people aware and trying to get people as passionate, because you get really passionate about stuff, which I love. And so you get really passionate and you're banging your head against the wall over and over again. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, well, everybody's doing this now. And you're like, well, not everybody yet, but you're still, you've always been a few steps ahead. And then people are always like, well, why didn't I listen to Richard sooner? They probably always like, why didn't I listen to you sooner, is probably, thing you hear often.
I even with COVID, I mean, I had masks in February of 2019. I already had my mask. I was already elbow bumping in March. And a developer that I did that with later on, a year later, said, I thought you were nuts.
Yeah.
It's like, no. So
no, it's not coming.
you know what I read?
Yeah.
We read, we're aware, we're constantly upgrading, and we love hanging around nice, smart people like yourself that get it, that at least see, that have the eyes to see. The people say, well, I don't believe that. It's like, okay, cool. Have at it. You don't believe. We like facts, in God I trust, all others show me data. Give me the facts. That's it. Just give me what, and people appreciate that. And they trust you after a while when you say, this is the way it is. This is what we're seeing. I mean, I've gotten fired from jobs because at the beginning of social media, I said, well, when you look at the data, it's coming. It's just not there yet. No, we're going down it now. It's like, okay, there go 5 websites, but I can't say, well, you're right, Mr. Client, I'll continue to take your money. It's like, okay, this is my observations. This is what I'm seeing. These are the facts the way I see them. Take them or leave them. I'm nice. I just
like that's something that I'd like to, you have always been, like, ethics is a big part of who you are. Like, you're always like, do the right thing is something that's always sort of, and like, that's why when your logo used to be like the turtle, which was like really sort of like this anti-hero of like the turtle, I guess was it when your mascot, I guess, was a turtle. And so was that the turtle in the hair? Was that where you guys went with the turtle, or what?
Yeah.
Why the turtle?
Well, a lot of people, when the mascot came out, it was specifically about websites because they were old and clunky and they needed to sort of get up to speed, sort of thing. And so we helped put wheels, and we had the turtle with the wheels. And so, when we launched a website, we gave them a little card with, a turtle with a rocket on its back taking off, launching a website. So the whole theme, and people love the turtle. People love the turtle. But yeah, it was the play on slower websites. You need to, they're older. You need to really, we need to help bring them up to speed. And because we did things properly, like you said from the first, we have websites that are, because we build to web standards. And I don't think people get this. Whenever you build a website to web standards, as the internet moves around, they always build to web standards. You need standards, right? Because things move. So the place that you are moved from doesn't change that much. We have websites that we built like, oh my gosh, right at the beginning, that are still working, that are still out there. Not that they're like, great, but and when you build them properly, also they load quicker. They don't have as many problems, so you don't have what we call technical debt. So you don't have to redo them all the time. You can a new set of clothes, sort of thing for the outside, but the back end is still accurate. The content is still pretty good. You just slip it on a new clothes. But the other thing, I don't know if we have time. Our industry, the web industry, has also become a bit broken in that developers don't even know how HTML anymore. And the marketers, we're in the same place now. I don't know if you remember this, if you're too young for this, but the Flash websites. Remember Flash websites? And everybody went down this Flash websites, right?
Oh my God.
We lost a lot of money because we said, no, we're not going to Flash. It doesn't meet web standards, right? And then the iPhone came out, and people and websites went onto it, and Apple wouldn't support it because it didn't meet web standards. It was a proprietary Adobe system or something like that, and they said no. So there's something about web standards and staying to the core of the truth that really works and lasts. And so in our industry, people now in websites, they buy themes for like free or $50. Web designers and web developers, two different kind of cats. And web designers, what I see, they buy these things and they use these themes and templates, and then they build a website around them, or they do pretty pictures and plop them in here, and here's your website for $5,000. It's amazing how clients already take it over. Oh yeah, they used a theme and it was a $65 theme. I paid $5,000 for that website. Anyway, don't get me going. But now, so the whole industry is doing themes, and these themes weren't accessible. Right, so you've whole industry has these cookie cutter, inaccessible themes. So we were building our own themes, simply because there were no accessible themes. So it forced us to build websites again properly that lasted. Less plugins, instead of having a plugin that does this, you just write the code for it. You don't need to update it. Better security. There's so many issues. Anyway.
Yeah, I do remember those days of Flash, because I was thinking about that in the .com era, and I had worked at a .com in the year 2000, and that was the thing. It was like all about the sizzle. It was all about the sizzle. Like, oh, let's make it so and I was like, and they had these same thing with the not just landing pages, but oh, let's make it really jazzy. And I just remember thinking, this is the dumbest thing ever, and I'm sure you felt the same way. And thankfully they kind of went away. But.
Well, so again, it's not good or bad. It's about the visitor. So does the visitor need it jazzed? Does the visitor need that? A younger audience might need a little bit more things happening. They might not. Older people, again, it's what's your target? Who's your target audience? Who's your audience? And give them that instead of look at this cool, shiny, pretty thing. Let's make this for everybody. It's like, wow. Anyway.
And sometimes marketers are guilty of doing that for sure, because they think, oh, well, let's build a TikTok. Let's get TikTok for seniors. It's like, that doesn't work.
Well, yeah. And I'm a marketer, right? Everything is marketing, where it used to be, anyway.
Yeah.
I don't want to go down this hole with marketers because
we're just as guilty though. And I think, I think the fact that you and your team look at data, and that's really crucial and important, because there's one thing to make something look really, what the brand thinks, this is what we want to showcase out there. But to your point, it's how are people navigating? Where are they going? Where are they missing out? And this is from the inception. I mean, I remember working with one at the .com that I worked at. One of our clients was Eli Lilly and Prozac, and it was like to your point, where do you want people to go and self-diagnose themselves with depression? It's like, well, then the test or wherever they wanted to go was buried so deep within the website, and this was in the year 2000. that the people couldn't get there. So it's sort of like it's non-linear. Like the web is so non-linear, which is what I loved about it, because my brain's firing on all these different directions too. And how to create those paths that get back to. And I think most people probably think, and I'm sure you get this all the time, like, I just have a simple website to build, Richard. It's really not going to take much. And then when they look at the scope of what really is needed, it's like, you know, the metaphor of like packing up your house. Well, I only need one van, but, you know, and then you start packing up and you're like, I didn't realize I had so much stuff.
How difficult? Oh, look at this is a simple. This phone isn't that. How complex could it be? It looks so easy to use. How complex could it be? Yeah. Or my favorite. Oh, could you just? Yeah, here's the scope, and then it's like, oh, could you just? Yeah.
Just change one thing. Just one.
Yeah. Or you know, you're battling a lot of times with what do you call it? Politics too sometimes.
Pardon?
And you can you hear me? Are you dealing with
politics?
Okay.
Yeah.
With politics sometimes, you know, so it's, you know, when it depends on the size of the corporate, but everybody has their own turf sort of thing. Yeah. So these sliders, you know, people love these sliders, you know, on websites. They think it's so cool. And I have 10 studies that show they irritate people. A. B, people don't click on them. C, they're again for you. They're not for anybody else, but you have different departments. Oh, I want mine showcased. You know, we once had this wonderful tool that was for navigation, would put the navigation at the top that was the most used, right? And that makes sense, right? Put it in the strongest, put the button exactly where it might get seen the most on the screen. Mm-hmm. And we have to remove it because the departments that were a little bit more powerful in the organization didn't like that. That was what people were visiting. There's so many variables. So it's not just data though. It's also like it's website data. Yes, they extract from analytics, but it's also live users. It's also you know, what you're seeing out there. What's working, what's not, because you get a sense of pieces. This is working now, so then you go down and you analyze it a little bit more. So it's and data can take you like all over the place. So you got to. It's again, it's a balance. Everything's a balance, and nobody's perfect. You just, you know, you keep evolving it, keep getting it better, keep measuring it, adjust. I mean, for even analytics, you know, look at where the visitors are going to a website, or inbound links. I mean, many times we'll analyze inbound links and say, hey, this we had this one company that a farm and had all these people coming to their website from a magazine in Toronto, Toronto Life magazine or something. I said, whatever you're paying them, they're huge. Look at the traffic. And they said, we're not paying them anything. It's like, well, maybe you want to contact them and see how you can get even, you know, more traction from this group, simply because we had another clothing person. It's like some California railroad company had their link on their website. And it's like, who is this? They called them up and said, well, you know what? We figure you guys up in Canada, you got a lot of snow and a lot of, you know, you guys know how to make clothes. So we just put, you know, if somebody's looking for cold clothing, we put you guys on there. It's like, well, thanks very much. Yeah. But so that's a huge opportunity as well. So anyway.
I think what it really boils down to is and the thing that never seems to change is strategy. I mean, strategy, and I've always said this over and over again, and digital and web, it's not even in, like, they really shouldn't be in their own silo. You know, it's the user experience at the end of the day. And that sort of circles back to the accessibility. It's the user experience, and the users just want to get what they want when they want it, whether it's online, whether it's offline. And it's not easy. I mean, we've been doing this a long time. We know that if there was a secret sauce or a perfect recipe, everybody would be doing it. And it's the nuanced ways of getting what we want when we want it. And so again, it's, you know, from the top down, which I find, you know, to your point, the politicking and the, you know, all this other stuff, it's like, that's their agenda, as opposed to what do people want at the end of the day? What do your users want? They're the ones who are paying the bills. So if they want what they want.
Don't make me think.
Yeah.
Like, don't make me think, please. And we're all, the thing that is weird, I live in a weird world. I don't know. Everybody uses the internet. We all know this. I can say things, and everybody on this call is going, "Yes, of course.
Right.
Oh, is that brilliant?" Nobody does it.
Yeah, I know.
Oh man.
I know it's sort of easier said than done, because I think in the, the other metaphor, the Shoemakers Children, right? It's sort of like, I can see that this website is screwed up, but then are people really taking a look at their own? Because these pop-ups, as I said before, advertising is, okay, so advertising in traditional is not maybe generating as many eyeballs as it used to. So what do? Let's just screw up everything we possibly can when it comes to mobile, so that, when people are trying to click off something, any news article I'm reading nowadays, there's at least 5 pop-ups that come up over here, over there. Oh, and it's like, oh my God, like, this is not winning me over. This is not making me want to subscribe to your stuff. This is making the user experience more challenging, and it's making, but then I can jump up and down, but who's actually listening? Nobody cares.
I know. Hugs. I know. It's like,
Yeah.
who listens? I don't know. We have clients that listen. I gotta say, we do have clients that listen, and because they don't know what they don't know, right? So if all of a sudden you say, "Hey, this is serious. You really have to start to look at this and do this." And COVID's been fascinating, because you've seen we've had the luxury of being in a whole bunch of different industries. So COVID affected people differently in each industry. And some was horrible. Some of our clients, tears. It was bad at the beginning in some industries. People laying off people, having, anyway, but you got to see how resilient we are, and how resilient businesses are, and how they shift very quickly to your point, to strategies, different strategies. And it's not just in say the context of the web, but even in business, because a website's a piece of that puzzle. It's not the whole thing. It's just a piece of it. But you can use the data in order to make decisions for your business as well. So there's all this side benefit. It's a 24-hour salesperson, as so that's a cheap salesperson. Inexpensive, sorry, not cheap, inexpensive salesperson. And now we're, with COVID, the sort of what operations can we put online as well to streamline it. COVID's been great for many things, sort of smashing the puzzles for businesses. They needed a kick. Some of them needed a kick in the butt, and I have been blown away by the businesses and how they've shifted. I mean, I don't think we have one customer that we've lost to COVID, like, at all. They've been brilliant. And if this wasn't working, they've done that. And so there's something about this, challenges really do motivate you to look at things a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think, and just to sort of wrap things up, because we're at the hour already, and you and I could always talk forever. But the pandemic has certainly made us all more aware of how much we have relied on, online changing, look at Zoom, and like there have been so many industries that have been so successful through the pandemic because we've had to pivot there, the online schooling and all that other stuff. I mean, we've had to do this. And I don't think, we're certainly not going to be going back to like what life was like. I don't want to say life was before, because it's like, you can't say normal. We may never go back to the way things were before. And so how our businesses pivoting and adopting to this new reality is important. And if they're not online, and, I still am always scratching my head when businesses they don't have a website out there. And you probably have the statistic as to how many businesses still don't have a website, which is so
it's like 40. It's still, it's yeah.
40.
Oh, I mean, again, it's still huge. Oh yeah, it's like, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. You know what? It's a tool. So there's a lot of companies that, if you're in a construction and trade, you might not want any more calls. They can't keep up. They're they all they do is RFPs. We've had lots of companies that we've never had to do that. We build bridges. We do RFPs. What do we send them what they need.
Mm-hmm.
But COVID, I went to really quickly. I went to a transportation conference even before COVID, and one of the presenters looked out and said, "Listen, I know this is a transportation committee, But I want you to know it really isn't about transportation. It's about accessing what it is that you need. And I went, oh, ability to access, accessibility. It's all about access.
Yeah.
And what COVID has done and brought to the forefront is that people need to access your company. And how do they do that? And they do it through the web. You know, a lot of the people, you do it through the web. So and it's not cool to exclude anybody. So we've had, you know, I can't book my vaccine online because the booking system isn't accessible and I'm blind. So I can't, you know, it's still, you know, we have friends that can't vote. You know, we have tons of people with accessibility that are friends, you know, and we feel for them because they, you know, they can go with somebody to go vote because they don't have the system to do it. It's just so, anyway, sad.
Well, hopefully under your charge, those things will start to change more as businesses start to realize. And that's why we're having these kinds of conversations, right? To educate.
Sorry, I didn't have my technology working. Oh, how perfect is that?
Even me, but I do like that Matthew has sort of reiterate sort of the key main points, his favorite points, anyways, of the conversation. So thank you, Matthew, for you know, providing your insights.
Thank you, Matthew.
Points, yeah.
Whoever Matthew Duff is, I like Matthew.
Yeah. Let Matthew know how to connect with you if he doesn't already know. Anybody else that's sort of watching, how can people reach you?
LinkedIn, Matthew.
You got a special site?
Oh, jeez. If I know him now. Hold on, let me read his comments. Is it good or bad? No. Either way. Yeah, connect with me on. Go to our website for more information. Contact me directly. Our CMSWebSolutions.com. To learn more about accessibility, we did build a website a long time ago called webaccessibilityexplained.ca. It's webaccessibility.ca. or webaccessibilityexplained.ca. Yeah, those are 3 ways to get a hold of me. Or you know where to get me to.
Well, of course I know how to get a hold. And so many people can get free audits. You know, they can at least call you.
No, we charge for audits.
Oh, you charge for the audit?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we do charge much, but we do charge for audits.
Because of the time.
And even if you're a techie, like you're a web developer and just need these micro coaching things, we'll give them the tools. Like, here's the tools. Here's how you check. Sandy will open up the code and say, oh, you know, here's the issue. Oh, boom. It's just this little thing that needs to, and they're like, oh, cool. That's easy. I didn't know that. So yeah, we are now trying to help others. We're working with agencies now. We're working with everybody. We just want to move this thing forward.
Yeah. So, you know, even somebody who might be in the same competitive landscape, and this is where a lot of my target audience is, like my key target audience are often marketers who understand all the other aspects of, say, social or digital or whatever, but they just don't have that LinkedIn piece. So it sounds like you guys will do the same thing. Being specialists in your industry, you can work alongside other people who do, you know, web development, but they just need that extra piece. So, you know.
Oh yeah, well, all the time. That's all our businesses with. I don't call them competitors because it's a big market, right? We're all just trying to do our pieces, and they do stuff way better than we do. But we've got this piece called web accessibility, which is our main focus for, you know, a good 10 years. Next 10 years is going to be focused on a lot more coaching, training, moving people forward. So, and still doing some like building websites, because, you know, that's what we do too.
Yeah, well, I have to thank you so much, because you are the first person that helped me get my business off the ground way back when. I tell people all the time, anybody that we know mutually, that you really helped me, you know, with my career trajectory. So I always have you to thank. So thank you for bringing me in the loop, and always, I mean, you and I both love to read, or now it's more for me audiobooks, but we always like to share ideas and bounce ideas off of each other. So thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. As you know,
always fun. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So I know we are going to be chatting soon. And yeah, anybody who wants to reach out to Richard, please feel free to reach out to them at cmswebsolutions.com or on LinkedIn as well. So, okay. Talk to you soon. Okay. Bye for now.
Arrivederci. Bye-bye.
Okay.